thing is right. What am I looking at here? I think, oops. All right, I'm just gonna make sure my live on Twitch. I believe we are. Right. And we should have chat over here. I'm gonna bring it over. All right, welcome to the stream. Don't know why this stream preview doesn't show here. All right, we're live on YouTube as well. All right, so another session of working on the editor. We had some progress yesterday. So I think I can go to the editor, select a cage. All right, we have the UI there. So now I guess it's time. Oh yes, I remember now. We were cleaning up this little mess here. We had it fixed just before I finished in the evening. So let me just double check I know what I'm doing here. All right, so the hover cage is updated on movement. At the end of movement, we're setting hover cage to cage here, right? So when we're starting, if we are hovering over the same cage we already have set as the hover cage, we'll just exit. There's nothing to be done, right? And maybe I can clean up all these return trues and do kind of a reverse thing, right? So we basically need the cage to be different than the hover cage. That's the only time we actually need to do something when we're moving. Now, if it's different and the hover cage is undefined, sorry, if it's different and the hover cage is not undefined, so this is the current cage, right? Now we're looking at the selected cage, right? So if we are hovering over a cage, but not over the selected cage. So here, cage is hover cage. Now if cage, this dot hover cage. So let me think. Basically, the idea is if we are hovering a new cage, we want to remove the hover style on the previous hover cage. Right. And if the cage is the selected cage, we don't want to do anything here. Okay, so I think I'm going to invert this. So if, hey, Logan, how are you doing? If the cage is not equal, so cage here is the current cage, right? The cage that the mouse is on right now, and hover cage is the previously hovered cage. So let me think. If we are, so there's three actions, right? There is don't hover because it's selected, don't hover because you're not hovering, and unhover the previous one, right? Hey, Hypertexture, how you doing? Howdy, guys. Somebody on Twitch, somebody on YouTube. Great. My audience is properly split. So I just wanna, man, I wanna unravel this situation here. So let's think about it. When do we need to remove the hover? The hover needs to be removed if cage is different from the hover cage. And hover cage is not selected. Right, so if cage is undefined, we still want to unhover. So if cage is not equal to this dot hover cage, so we don't care if cage is undefined or not. If hover cage is undefined, we don't do anything either, right? If cage is unequal to hover cage, and this selected cage is unequal to hover cage. So in those cases, we want to unhover. Let me think. Wait 1 second. If cage is hover cage, we don't want to do anything. If cage is selected cage, we also don't want to do anything. No, we do want to do something. So in this case, for example, if I go from this cage and it's currently hovering to this, we do want to unhover this, right? So the unhover action happens here. So we do unhover first. So that's sorted out. Now, could it be that hover cage is undefined? If cage is undefined, hover cage is undefined, and selected cage is undefined. If cage is undefined and hover cage is undefined, cage... Basically, will this blow up if hover cage? So I think we need to do this as well. So if hover cage and then we unhover. Okay. Now we've unhovered. This assignment, does this matter if they are already assigned? No, it doesn't matter, right? And if cage is undefined, then hover cage becomes undefined, and that's fine too. Now, if cage... Okay, so now... Alright. So I think that's our... So we unhover only if hover cage is assigned, and we hover if hover cage. But we also only hover if hover cage is not equal to the selected cage. So we unhover... Sorry, we apply the style if the selected cage is not equal to the hover cage. Right. So now I think all the conditions are handled properly, and then we can return true at the end to avoid the selection stuff to kick in. All right, let's make sure I didn't break it now. So if I select this, I can hover, but this stays selected. If I click it again, it does that. If I select something else, it does that. I can add things, but I can't unselect currently. I can just select a different cage, right? Because clicking on the selected cage actually removes the cell. But this actually implements the algorithm correctly. And it's, you know... Alright. Actually, we probably don't need those anymore, because now we just have hover, unhover, hover, and assignment here. Alright. So now, this stuff works, right? And I can extend this to here. Okay. The only thing it doesn't do is it doesn't let me overwrite in one step. So if I want to extend this cage into this cell, I have to select this first, delete this, select this again, and then edit, and then bring it over. But that's okay. I'm okay with that. Now, input down, we have a similar series of events, right? So we check if we're currently clicking on a cell. So here we're doing the cage add and remove. And then what are we doing here? We're doing the cage select. Does cage select proceed adding and removing? I think so, right? Because the only time when selection happens, it just happens, right? And this only happens if selection doesn't happen, right? So this happens first. So if hover cage, and in fact we don't even need cell here. So that actually happens afterwards, okay. So we're relying on hover cage to already take care of this for us. And I'm almost tempted to record a hover cell as well. But that's not an expensive algorithm, right? Okay, so if hover cage, so we have our hover cage, and the currently selected cage is not equal to the hover cage, then if selected cage, we unselect the previous one. So can we do the same pattern here? If I'm just thinking because here it's in one clause, right? So if a selection is happening, while here we're not actually checking if a quote-unquote rehover is happening, right? Because these two go together-ish. So here, hover cage. No, because here we have a hover cage, while here we're basically just looking at cage. But let's see if I can apply the same pattern. So if cage, we're moving. If cage is undefined, we still need to, yeah, so if we're moving and the cage is undefined, we still need to unhover. So the only thing that determines is if the selection no. If cage is unequal to hover cage, then we have changed, right? That's when anything at all happens. If cage is unequal to hover cage. Yeah, the thing is, we have the added complexity, quote unquote, here, because we don't want to restyle the selection, right? The selection style overrides the hover style. So, if cage is unequal to hover cage, so that's the only time it changes. If this is undefined or this is undefined, same thing, right? Now, we only unhover it if it's not selected. So if this dot selected cage is unequal to hover cage, and I'm just gonna do this and this, because the hover cage obviously needs to be assigned to be able to apply our style. So now we're assigning it, and now we're changing cages, right? And now we're kind of doing the same thing, right? Because now if hover cage is still assigned and hover cage is unequal to selected cage, then we apply it. It's the same check. So this should also work. All right. Now there's something weird happening here on the right edge. Oh. Yeah, there's more than one cage there. Oh, stuff happens. Okay, there's some weird shit happening there. Gotta look that up. So this should now be the same pattern as this. Sorry. So we assign selected cage. We're unassigning hover cage. Here we don't need to unassign cage. Okay, that's fine. If selected cage, apply style. Yeah, selection style overrides hover style. Okay, so this is fine and this is fine. So we can close this now. Now, after we've done the selection update. But we don't know yet. Wait. No, we do know, right? Because this is not affected if we're clicking on the same cell or not. No, it is affected, right? Because we don't want to add a cell that's already in the cage. So we can do this, right? And I think we're going to put this in a function here. So get age from cell. And it's basically just this, right? can do this. And let's not do a const here. And I think, do we need cages here? Yeah, same thing. Cage. All right. So now we have two cases. If the cell we're clicking is part of the current cage, we're removing it. The thing is, this will match this now. So that's why I did the selection after the fact, right? So we don't, like, if I click here, I don't want to immediately delete that cell. I want to select. So I want to require 2 clicks. That's why this was happening afterwards. Okay, all right. Let's put this at the bottom then. So now we can say if we have a cell and a selected cage, then if hover cage is undefined, that means we're not hovering, so it's a blank cell, then we add it. So we can only add blank cells. And if hover cage is the selected cell, if I do this first, hover cage, yeah, so this has to be an exclusive if-else statement because we're updating the values. If I put this below or after, so I try to to avoid else statements. Don't know why actually, but yeah. So now cage here is not needed because we have already cage from hover cage, and that's that. Do we need to do this? So yeah, the reason we're doing this is because we're not updating the selection here. Cell is not equal to undefined. I'm trying to see if I can avoid doing this return here. If cell is not equal to undefined, so we're clicking on a cell and we have a selected cage. This is exactly when the selection might change, right? Wait. Let's see. Selected cage is not undefined. I mean, I could string it out into a 3-case scenario. It's not worth it to avoid, like, I hate that return in the middle here. Normally I return early, but especially when you have a return value like this can be confusing. You look at this code later and then you don't see this one. But I don't want to clone all these conditions into the whole thing. Let me think about it. Selection changes is exclusive of the other stuff happening. If a selection change happens, this stuff never happens. So if I put this first and then do this as an else if, right? If this happens, this stuff just cannot happen. And do I need cell here? Yes, because I can click somewhere where there isn't a cell. All right, it just covers us for out of board clicks and stuff like that. Okay, so if I do this now, I can select these. I can remove cells. I can add cells. All right, let's remove this. Add this to this cage. All right, that works. All right, I really would like to get undo working on the editor, man. That would be awesome. But I'm not quite sure if I can manage that. All right. So now the cells have a remove cell that works. We have an add cell. So that's all contained within the cage component now. So this is all getting a lot simpler now because, well, a lot more organized, let's put it that way. So the next step now would be to update our selected cage, right? So instead of doing all this down here, selection happens here. So previously, selection was done, I'm guessing in the section, oh no, wait, that's the deprecated stuff now. section cages handle component change. So it's not really component change, right? It's component select. It's component editor component, handle component change, select component index. Okay. So we really kinda... So forget selected cage for a second here. Let's rename all of this to a selected component. Right, so selected cage. This becomes selected component. And I think we'll do the same thing with the hover. We'll just rename it to be consistent. Make sure this still works. All right, and then hover cage becomes component. It's a little long. Page is shorter. This hurts me a little bit on the inside. It's gonna start looking more and more like Java. All right. This dot hover cage equals undefined. Hover component. So I'll try to purge cage from the wording as much as possible. That makes the code easier to reuse. Okay. So now instead of changing the selected component, and let's just do this for a sec. Component cage edit puzzle component hierarchy request base classes. So edit component. I'll just bring this down here. It's gonna get a little tight. So we have select component, which takes an index. I think we want to be able to select a specific component as well. So here we basically do this dot select component this dot hover component instead of just a plain assignment. So now if I click this, editor component cages. Wait. Ah, already. I'm already doing this conversion. Okay. I think we want to do the opposite though. Components if components index if type of component equals number, component equals components component. And we don't need this. And component index isn't a thing anymore. Component. I think it makes more sense. Unexpected token. Tuki. Ooh, okay. Now the hover doesn't work anymore. Ugh. That's weird, since we're not actually calling this. What? Is there a hover page? No. No, there isn't. Oop, no, that's one. Hover component. Oh, I need it. All right, I wasn't in the tool. Hey, Mark, thanks. I mean, thanks for letting me know. I presume you weren't the extra 2 subs. Let me just have a quick look. Yay! Ah, awesome. So I should be able to now. Let me see. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Audience, viewers, subscribers. There isn't like a nice display where I can celebrate. Actually, I'm pretty sure there used to be. There was like a... There's a kind of view your subscribers type highlighty thing. Where is it? I don't remember where that was. Maybe from the dashboard. It hasn't even updated yet. Summary view. Channel ticks, go to see comments, go to videos, latest comment. There used to be, and when I say used to be, I mean I found it like a couple of weeks ago, like a display that just shows like the sub numbers. YouTube sub display. Analytics overview real-time card. Sorry, this is totally off topic. Oh, you were the... Ah, okay. Well, at this point, I'll take it. Yay! Awesome! So that means I should now be able to set up a channel name if somebody hasn't stolen it yet. Because I've been like waiting for it for so long. Can I do this just from customized channel? Change, view channel, no, basic info. Can I change this now? Oop. Includes channel, maybe they have to do something first. Because it doesn't let me edit it yet. Channel URL. It's not editable. So I think they probably... It means they probably need to like acknowledge it first somewhere. Customization basic info. And then you can copy, view and copy. Standard ID, blah blah blah. Custom URL. Basic info set. And check if you've claimed a custom in your basic info settings. Downloaded custom URL shortly. At least 30 days old. Upload profile banner. Upload banner setting. Okay. I have that, but customization method. Set a custom for your channel. Under channel URL, click. Yeah, I think under channel URL, there's no set thing yet. Boo. I guess I'll have to wait for them to acknowledge it. There might be some sort of timing involved. But there's one thing I can do. I can update my spreadsheet. Let's see. Even more exciting. Yay! Woo-hoo! Fireworks! Yeah, I mean, if I stream consistently, the streams tend to, you know, bring in occasional new viewers, and then occasionally they get interested, and occasionally they subscribe, and it's... But I hope it'll add up, you know what I mean? The more there are, the more there will be, that kind of thing. The usual algorithmic growth stuff. So now the next big milestone will be 1 million users on the site, I think. Let me just have a quick look at analytics here. I think that'll be the next sort of big deal that I'm kind of looking forward to. I mean, you know, it doesn't feel as much my doing, because that's like, you know, it's whatever Cracking the Cryptic sent over, basically. But at the same time, I've built the app and people like using it, so I gotta look at it that way as well. Let me see, audience. Man, They've removed an easy place to see like total numbers and stuff, and it's just so annoying. This, all users. Am I not looking at the right thing? I have 0 users. That doesn't make sense. Overview. All users. Yeah, I'm just looking at that. 87. Yeah, it's getting there. Slowly, slowly. 11 million sessions, 18 million page views. Yeah, I hope I'm not gonna fall foul of some kind of free tier with this stuff on analytics. We had that problem with the game studio I used to work at, because we had like crossed 100 billion users or something. It was crazy. All right, so now we need to fill in this stuff. So we need to hook into all this things here. So it calls a component render. So cage component. Okay. Because right now, when you're adding and removing the component knows how to update itself. So right now, the component does not update its UI, but the editor should. So to do that, we basically have to override this. So we'll do something like this: function component, right? And then we want to call wait, base constructor. Is it like this? Let me double check. Then call in JavaScript, call inherited ancestor function. Parent method from child. I guess it's just wire prototype, not prototype. Superclass method. Yeah, I don't want class-based inheritance though. All right, let's see. Let's just write these things out. It's a pity I have to actually write the function names out and stuff. It'd be nice if I could just refer this.function or whatever. And there's some crazy stuff I can do with introspection and stuff, but don't really want to. So if I press this, this should all fire. Okay, so we have the base constructor. Base constructor select component. So base constructor is editor component. So base constructor.prototype. All right. And wait, JavaScript super in prototype inheritance. Product.call. Say my name, blah blah blah. No.call. But that's for the that's for the constructor. So let's see, base constructor. By the way, I read your request, and to be honest, I think I'm just going to give you access to the main repo. I kind of trust you by now. And I mean, the only thing really that's in there that you don't already have is the database itself, like the puzzle data, and my server-side scripts. And I hope I've been good enough to not have any kind of keys and stuff in there. I mean, there's some Firebase stuff, like there's configuration, but I don't think there's any author. Actually, I probably should be looking at this on stream. I'll maybe have a quick look over that stuff. All All right, so base constructor select component, base constructor dot prototype, and let's see, base constructor prototype. So that's probably where we want to call. Ugh. It's really ugly. What happens if I do this? Yeah. Ugh. Yuck. Yuck, yuck, yuck. Let me think. Is there some better way of doing that? I mean, P is the prototype, our current prototype. Whoops, there was a link there. So P, base constructor, P constructor prototype, P is our prototype, which has its own. So if I call P.select component, well, it's just this. I'm just trying to see if I can amend the extended method to give us easier access to the base. We have the base constructor. I mean, we could do base proto type. I mean, it's not much shorter, right? I mean, that would literally just be like a nicety. So if I do this, I mean, it's a bit shorter. And, so clear that. So if I select this, what happens? We're hitting cage editor select component, which then hits editor component, which goes through to the render and all that stuff. And now we know we're all selected up and all that stuff. The component is rendered, and now we need to add it to our list. And to add it to our list, we basically want to look at section cages. Get UI, so I think it was update UI back in the day. Now, in fact, that function might not exist anymore. Oh, no, it does exist. Okay. Section update UI. And these should all be deprecated. So let's move them down into the deprecated section. So many deprecations, and I only just started the code base. And this actually should be handleable in the parent function. So let's see if we can just put it into the editor component. So let's see. Put that stuff here. And then, right, so I should be able to, oh, wait, we're already doing that. Never mind. Section update, yeah, it is used. Where is it used? 887. It looks like it's deep and deprecated. Okay. It's just in the definition. 896, 896. And yeah. So we're already doing this. The only thing we're not doing is we're not adding it to the listing. Components, element, component. So that shouldn't actually happen during selection. The adding of the items should be happening when the item gets added. Surprise, surprise, right? And that's add component, which is happening up here. Which happens, and this is the one that calls update UI, which then calls section update UI, which is all of this. Okay. So these bits I'd like to, so anything to do with the UI I'd like to separate out. So these two lines here in selection. So p.get components list component list. So we're isolating that piece. Gosh damn it. We're isolating that piece of code because I don't like having DOM stuff flying around everywhere. Right? So this becomes this. And then we are setting the value. And then here, add component, let's component list. And then after adding the component, components element, components push, update UI. So it's the update UI that does it, I think. Components for each. So here we're wiping the list, and so instead of wiping the list, I think we're just gonna do one of these here. Components, new component. Components, new component. Index. Index. Components. Push returns the index of the pushed item, right? Yeah. Well, the way I learned, never mind. All right, so let IDX equals that. That should be it, right? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. The rendering is a little odd. And then we should select it. So the last one should be the selected one. Now, what the selection currently doesn't do is it doesn't actually update the rendering of the selected component, which supposedly is supposed to be happening here. Except that's not how it's laid out right now. So right now, handle input down, selection happens here. So this selection rendering, this stuff here should actually happen. Okay, so we should really override selection, select component here, which we already are. We should probably do it higher up. So if this dot selected component equals component return, and we should probably do that down here as well, not down here, up here. So select component. Components was selected component. Yeah. Okay, so we're doing that already. So in select component now, so instead of doing this out here, we can basically get rid of most of this, right? So then we do this. If this.selected component, we apply the style. We'll do the same thing afterwards, like this. Okay. And I guess that's always going to be the case. We're just on hover. I mean, we can like, this should be always the case, but hey, you know, maybe in the future, there's something that will magically select a component for us, and we don't want the hover to be affected, right? If select component is this hover component, then we do not want to hover. No, actually, no, we don't need to do this at all, because this doesn't affect the hover style, right? We're handling that separately. Now, I can select different components. Okay, now obviously the list is too large here. We need to sort that out. All right. I'm deselecting by clicking outside is something we still want to sort out. All these checks probably don't apply now, right? Because this is this check, and this one is checked inside selection. Yeah, we want to actually pull that check outwards. So if selected component equals component, if component equals, if the current selected component is this, so it doesn't matter if they're both undefined, whatever, then we're skipping out. So that is ensuring this. Select is different from hover component. Yeah, okay, so this is equivalent to the check we're doing here, the first check here. Hover component. Now, this ensures basically that we're not deselecting if this.hover component, select component, hover component. Okay, so this just means we're not doing all this other stuff here. Because we could just always have select here up front. But if we did that, then clicking off a cage would deselect it, and the rest of this will fail and will not add the thing, right? So that needs to be in here. All right, that actually simplifies this quite a bit. All right. And then selected components. So no selected component assignment happens, because now we can do some nicer things with the variables, right? So we can do, say, let cell equals this dot selected component, and we can shorten that all. Like we can do something like this, and all of these can be shortened, because there's never an assignment down here anymore, because that's happening inside the select component methodology, right? Now the hover component we still want to assign, right? All right. Ooh, 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 ooh. Ooh. No, it's not happening. It's not working. If, okay. Great. Okay, I'm gonna start over. Console.log. Do this and so. So if I select this and then press here, hover component is undefined. So we're going straight to this. Let's do cell as well. So if I click here and I click here, cell is because I misspelled selected. That's why. Ooh. That doesn't work. One second. So if I click this, what do I have? I have a hover component. Oh, I still need to check this out here, because otherwise I need to do all this stuff. Okay, yeah. That sucks. If hover component and hover component is not equals cell. I still need that check, sadly. But that will work now. All right. I think that's a little cleaner. I mean, we could do... we can do a little bit like this. We can do like a component as cell and a hover component as hov. And pull it out of this. And we just have to be careful. I often don't do this because then when you do an assignment, like if you say, if I replace this now, it screws me over. So you have to be a little careful. But all those long strings were making things a little unreadable, I find. So we have position, we have get cell, input pose. So I think this happens a lot as well. So we probably want to wrap this up into a helper function, and we can put that helper function into the editor class at the top. So we can do p dot get input cell. And then it basically does all of this stuff here. So app puzzle is used here, component isn't used. Pause app.input pause. Let's rid of that. Change this to input RC. Just have the naming consistent. And then we can return this. Now let's keep these separate. And then we should be able to just do this dot get input cell. And we don't need any of this stuff. Except not even components. Alright. We can do the same thing in our handle input move. Slowly but surely things will get a little bit cleaner, a little bit more sane. So app I don't think is used. Components isn't used either, so all of this goes away. We have get cage from cell already. Boom, 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 boom. Yeah, all of that works. And that can be a single liner. So that's cleaned up. All of this goes away. All right. I have to resist not to rename these to cell and hov, and comp instead of component. I like to be, I try to be verbose, especially in API, so they become self-documenting. Because then if you shorten it and then you have to put a comment next to it to tell people what it means, you've kind of failed. Now this isn't hooked up, and that used to be hooked up in the old, in the deprecated system, right? So let's have a look. I'm hearing a hum. I think it's my, yeah, it's my laptop was touching the desk. Cleaners were here this morning and they moved everything. Not my laptop, my desktop is touching the desk and the vibration of the fan carries through. It's terribly noisy. Oh, and that's the music. It's restarting. I'm super pro. I haven't figured out yet how to loop the music. All right. The cage value change dot components change handle component change handle component change. Yeah, I think this is it. I'm hesitant because I'm wondering if I can handle it generally in the editor component. So we have update UI. We have get attach element, which I feel like the component listing should be separate. Wait a second, okay. Wait a second. Ah, wait, I'm straying. So attach element. Ah, okay. All right. In fact, I already have it here. All right. I'm just thinking, can I do the main stuff with the component listing in the editor element and then just have stuff like this added here? And I think I can. So if I go to editor component, attach element. So right now, this is happening here, right? But I can do this. I can actually do something like, nope. Nope. I want to do this. Because I'm obviously gonna do more things here. But this part won't be there. Now I might actually provide a hook here by doing something like that's a bit tricky. Component editor. If I do this, let's see what that will do. And then we need to call the inherited function. Attach element. And I don't know why I'm doing all this. I should have just used Vue or Svelte or whatever is the brand du jour. UI element not defined. All right. We gotta get rid of some of the spamminess. So add component doesn't need to log. Component.toString doesn't need to log. Component.toRender right now doesn't need to log. We might need that later. We don't need to log all the select component stuff now. I think we've sorted that. And what's left? Not much. Cool. So now UI element is here. And we have a component editor. Tool section, components, component editor. Okay, now here we basically, I want to see if I can just do something like query selector dot component editor. Can I pull that item out? Can I pull that item out? Yes. So now I can basically do this. Something like this. Let editor comp editor, and that will be the parent to this thing. For now. So that should add the input thing here. And now I can have the event handlers managed by the respective correct places. So for example, this all right, components, dot add listener, change this handle component change. Now, does handle component change fire? Maybe. Handle component change. Okay, so I think we have a problem where handle component change, where select changes the component and handle component change fires selection. So we might have a bit of a loopy loop here going on. Ah no, select component gets called. Okay, now if I click here, what happens? Handle component change, select component. Okay. And here we have component A and component B output. Clear. Click. What happens? So target value is 3. Component is 3. If type of component equals number, component equals component's component. Okay. Something's missing in my brain. I'm missing a small piece of information. I wrote that blindly, assumed it's a string. Yeah. Can I type of component, instance of component, instance of component. Are we inside component here? No, we're at the component. Component, object, true, object, true, object, true. So basically I'm expecting a false now. False. Okay, so we can use that. So if not component instead of component, do that. Okay, so that resolves the component. No, it doesn't. If component. Does this resolve it or not? Components. Cage component, component 4. Component equals components component. Component is 4. Component, component. Why is component? Am I misspelling something here? Component. If not, instance of component. I believe I need braces here. And to this day, I don't know why instance of has such a low precedence. There we go. That's what I wanted. All right. Ooh. So now I should be able to go here and just manually by keyboard go boop. Undefined reading render. Okay, so if wait, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The value is 1 less. Okay. So when you're adding them, value needs to be -1. Yeah, it returns the previous length, not the new length. So now we should go all the way to 0, and then we should go all the way to max. There we go. Okay, there's probably some error checking we can do, but for now that's not important. Okay, and now that means we can use the selection list, which I will trim. I will limit the size. Okay. Now, what's not happening is the value element is not getting updated. So for now, we're going to do this and this. Now, the select component should update the editor. And what I'm going to rename this is I'm going to rename this as an inspector. So that's kind of what it is, right? Kind of what it is. So, I mean, we're building basically a Unity 3D type interface here for Sudoku puzzles, which could be a good thing, could be a horrible, terrible, terrible thing. What if I do this? And we're gonna change this to value. Only issue is here, there's a bit of... We're not raw editing the values. We'll deal with that later, because the value technically is just a string, right? But I'm currently managing the values together with the position, right? Let's find a one that has values, and not a big description. It makes this thing so small. It's so small. So small. All right, let's use this one. These cages have values. That's what I need at this moment in time. So this change handler works. What I do like is that I can have some functionality in the base class and then add functionality relatively easily to the next level up. Okay, so then we have prop. Yeah, so we have value change, but in reality that should be prop change, right? So we did used to have a handle value change method in the deprecated stuff. So handle cage value change, so stuff like this, right? And I don't think I want to have a bunch of different methods for each of those. So we're just gonna do for everything in the inspector. We're gonna just have a change handler, right? So we're gonna do this dot query selector all, and for now I'm just gonna look at the inputs. I think it's dot each, right? But I tend to do this. Actually, it is each, isn't it? I don't know why it's not for each. I just know it's not for each. Doesn't that return anything? Oh, so we're not there yet. Attach elem 168. Where's attach element happening? Init, editor component, loaded, resolve, load puzzle data, open current puzzle. Attach elem, node list input. Query selector all each is not a function. Node list. So node list dot prototype. Node list, no. Prototype dot for each. It does have for each. What the heck am I messing about with? I was convinced it didn't have for each. One second, let's figure out what it's complaining about here. 168. Inside editor component. 168. Components element. Components list element. If. Yeah, that's why these need to be gated, because a lot of this stuff can kick in when the UI isn't there. Oh, that's a problem. Ooh. Ah, that's annoying. Okay. So if I'm using the DOM to manage the things, then... So I have two choices, right? The DOM is a separate thing, and the data is a separate thing. That means that when the DOM gets created, I have to look at the data and fill in the DOM. But things like add component handle both the DOM and the data currently. So when the DOM doesn't exist, the DOM stuff fails, but later on it assumes it happened, right? And I'll have to do a lot of check code to just reassemble the DOM and attach and all that stuff. Maybe not that. The thing is, then something like this, is that a separate method? Yes, no, maybe, I don't know. It's in the base class, so I could get component list lm, get component list lm, create lm, get component list lm. Index components, new component string, components push. I'm just looking if this can go into a separate method, right? P add component to UI. Because this, for example, it doesn't check if the component already exists, which is another thing. Well, that looks weird. Because now I can do stuff like this, and then value would be, don't know if it's new. And then I would say this dot component components dot index of component, right? Basically. Component. Oh, my fingers. This dot add component to UI. New component, get rid of all of this, get rid of this. So if we're already in the tool, that'll do the trick. If we're not in the tool, and then enter the tool, obviously that won't do anything, but when we're doing attach element, we can do something like this dot components dot for each component. So we know that now, if components exist, when we're creating the UI, they can get added after the fact. Except they're not. Except they are not. Why not? So if I click this now, add component to UI, and so on, log. Good. For initialization. Fine. Get component list element is null at this stage. Is it though? Is it though? Is it though? Apparently it is. Let's see. Let's just flatten this a little. So we have our UI element here. Don't actually need to do this because we have the UI element, right? Sec, this is getting in the way. Why do I feel like I'm chasing my own butt all the time? Right. But in reality, we have UI element here. And we should be able to just get the components list out of that. Sorry, one sec. Go here, clear, go here. So attach element, cage editor, put it in attach. Attach element, get component list element is null. But UI element is a thing. Now the UI element should have a select called with the class of components. Now, we should have a data section called cages. So, and we have an object call with a class components. So if I replace this with cages, will that work here? And I'm guessing it will. So it means at this point, we haven't been attached yet. And in fact, I can see that we haven't, because we're not assigning a parent here, which means this is happening higher up the hierarchy inside the editor. So puzzle editor, attach element. All right, I know the solution to this. This is not complicated. But basically, we're creating them here, and then the whole attachment to the actual root DOM doesn't happen until this is finished executing. Right. So that's fine, because we can now, instead of doing a global query selector, which is what we were doing previously with in here, instead of doing a global one, we can now just do a reference to our own one, right? So we can do this .uilm .query selector, and now we don't need this data section thing anymore. So it's actually in many ways much better, and all the classes start making sense and all that. I mean, in fact, we could argue that this is almost not necessary anymore. In fact, we could easily cache it as well, because we know when this thing changes, right? So in attach and detach, we can just cache and uncache and all that. So if I go here now, do this, and then click here, it gets filled in, sort of. Not quite. Not all of it. Editor component, right? Attach element. Get undefined reading. So obviously we need a UI element. And yeah. Return this, and so these need to be all no ops when there's no UI element. And they should be like this. So if I go here, do this, nothing crazy happens. We go here, it gets all filled in, and we're up to date. All right. So this is a way of doing it. If I can come up with a neater way, I would like that very much, because this feels a little... But, you know, we have also this, which is basically this. Yeah, that's the same thing, right? And probably the candle component change thing. Do we want to attach that first or after? Isn't that gonna fire each time? Wait, if I go here. No, it doesn't fire when I programmatically add the things. Okay, cool, 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 cool. But if I click here, it does. And if I click here, it updates the selection in here. And it scrolls to the right position in the cell and all that stuff. Right, that's exactly what we want. All right, it's coming together. It's coming together slowly, painfully, but surely. So let's get rid of some of this stuff here. All right, and now these things start making more sense. I mean, at this point, this one, get component list element, is almost no longer relevant. This probably gets wrapped into like update inspector or something. Wait, no, this is not part of the inspector. Yeah, let's leave it in here for now. For now, we'll leave it in. This can happen separately, though, after all of this, I think. So we can put it at the bottom. Right, we'll go here, switch to there, everything still works. Okay. And reduce the spamminess. So next step is to update the inspector. And that actually happens in here as well. So I'm just trying to think, what are the places we are updating? So when a new component is selected, we need to update the inspector. Whenever something is edited, you know, this might have to update the inspector. Like this does not update this listing right now. And we can consider this part of the inspector update. So originally I was thinking of having a single render function on the object doing both. But I think the inspector is separate enough that we probably want to do this separately as well. Update UI, update inspector. And it's funny, I struggle to come up with stuff from scratch, and then in the end I'm just reinventing or rediscovering the same language we were already using. So, go figure. So, update inspector needs to be fired when selection changes. So we'll do this dot update inspector. And then we can actually move all of these things into here. And then we can do if not this dot UI turn. Okay. So if I refresh this, we're hitting update inspector. Components is not defined. All right. That's this. Oh. Component is not defined. Equals if components element for right. Okay, and we can do. You know, we can do this kind of thing. Something like that. Okay. And now update inspector could also take care of other stuff, right? So I'm just trying to think, if we're executing add component to UI, we might need to do update inspector here as well. No, sorry, if we do Add component to UI. Because the selection might happen here, right? Actually, wait. I'm just trying to think of all the different places where this stuff can change. So over here, and I go here, and the inspector comes into existence. Just trying to think. Do we want the inspector to be like an object that we're actually handling? Because this is what this is, right? This is the cage inspector. And maybe that's finally the terminology I need, right? Cage inspector. Cage inspector handles cages, has a list of cages, edits cage data, yada yada yada, right? So that might be a rename I'm actually gonna do. Eureka, right? But we can update the inspector here. So if I go off the thing, off the editor, open the editor, select editor, handle, tool edit, attach element, cage editor, update inspector happens here, and then selection happens. So selection should also update the editor. Update inspector. Select, wait, select, puzzle editor to select editor. Ah, okay, no, that's a different thing. This shouldn't really happen before this, but I think the highest level part is not actually functional yet. I'm feeling my brain skittering every which way, so I'm gonna wind up this stream, even though I started late today because of the cleaners. But I'm gonna wind up the stream in about half an hour or so. How long is the streaming going? I don't even know where I can see. Started streaming less than 1 minute ago. Why do I feel that that is not accurate? Oh, YouTube, you're so funny. I'm just seeing my suggestion box in Twitch. I haven't actually been paying attention to that, and I'm seeing a bunch of bug reports. If I double tap highlight a box to highlight similar, iOS Safari zooms in. Okay, that should have been sorted by now. When you can mark every number from 1 to 9, 9 is off the grid instead of the center and overlaps other numbers. Yes. Press and hold the number button. Highlights all the firm digits in the grid, or all the ones for the tool you're on. Oh wait, that's the suggestion. If you press and hold a number button, highlights all the firm digits in the grid, or all the ones for the tool you're on. You can already do that by pressing one of the digits, but they want to use the keypad for that. Well, I have some other ideas of how I'm going to use the keypad, so probably going to be using it for that. I get average view duration. I don't get how long my stream has been. Finally found it. Okay, 1.5 hours, right. So, we're updating the inspector. What the inspector currently doesn't do is it doesn't actually know anything about cages. And inspector element query selector all. Inspector element console.log. I don't actually know what I was doing here. I forgot now. Inspector element. So this is attach element. Inspector element is a node list with one input on it. Ah, okay. Okay. So we should now be able to do this thing in here. Dot add event. I'm tempted to move that down into the parent component handling updating the inspector. The problem is, to do that, the inspector actually would have to be defined in here. I mean, I have a database, like I could put this in the constructor. Now that I think about it. So I could say something like cage editor. then this dot inspector equals. I mean, I could either do this, right? Or I could have a create inspector function that I can overload. Does it make more sense to return it as a to have it as a function so I can attach functionality there? Because now what I can do is we have class inspector, and the inspector is actually going to be a list. Right? And then here we can do, first of all, we initialize this to an empty array. Like that. And now we can do something like inspector children this.inspector elms. Component list elm, handle component change. Components update inspector. So now wait. Now we don't actually need to do this here. In fact, probably don't need to do this at all. Right. Then here we can do inspector element, which is this. And then we can do for each element add handle inspector change. Excuse me, I'm gonna make this a bit bigger. Component change, inspector change. Right. Does that do the trick? Okay. And now we need a place for the object, not the object, I mean, ideally I could map the props to an inspector component so that the component itself, I mean, now I'm really reinventing Unity, right? Because I'm just thinking, we have the props on the component. So let's say each cage has a bunch of props, and the props correlate to data in the underlying puzzle. And then all we need is like, hey, if there's we can annotate it, say, hey, this is color, use the color inspector on this thing, type it basically, and then generate an inspector automatically. I'm not quite there yet, but maybe eventually I'll build it, especially if we ever want to build a full-blown high-quality editor that does all sorts of puzzles and all sorts of things, and don't want us to end up in a code mess like PenPan, some of the other editors, where the underlying code is a little crusty. But for now, I want to just clean up a little bit here and here. And I'm just gonna try to think of where exactly we want to fill in the inspector, right? So ideally, we're doing it in the editor component. So we're adding a component to the UI. That's basically where it has to happen, right? Except, obviously, they also get edited later, right? So we have update inspector, which is getting fired a lot. Interesting. Wait. We have update inspector, which updates the currently selected. So we already have update inspector here. So what if I do something like select component, And overload update inspector here. Update inspector. Get rid of all this other stuff. All right. Editor component, select add component, select component. So, cage editor cages update inspector, which calls the underlying update inspector, which we don't need a warning for. It's not that urgent. And now here, we need, basically we only need to update things if we have a selected thingamajig, right? If this dot, and we're just gonna do let selected component SL was this, if SL and we have props. But for now, we're just going to hand build it. And we want components as well. And we need to update the object with the new string, right? So wait a second. If I do this, that fires, but this currently does not fire update component. I mean update inspector. So that's one thing we need to change. So handle input down. So we're doing one of these. We're just gonna do this. So now if I click, it'll update, right? And then we need to update the thingamajig with the toString. This, basically. Now the question is, can I do this in the base class editor component? I think I can. Components, element, get components, list element, components, index of cell. Components, element. So this should always be the case, right? Because we're already skipping out if this thing is all right. So let idx equals this, and then components element idx.text contents equals components.toString. And instead of toString, we could even do something else here. Bleh. Okay. Okay. What's going on here? Is that the end of the music again? That means 2 hours, right? Nope, end of music is not reached yet. Components index of cell, update inspector. So IDX is negative. What does that mean? Is selected maybe? Uh-huh. All right, so we'll just do if this. If we have a, and to be honest, we can probably do this. Components IDX cell. Now, if we're not selected, we probably want to unset this stuff. So we want to clear out yada, 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 right? These things won't get updated though. That's the only thing that gets updated. So by setting that to -1, it actually already does the job, I think. Yeah, I think this might actually just work like that. So now if I click this and then I do this, it fires stuff, but it doesn't update. Cage mate. Components to string, what? No. I think we can just do this, right? Yeah, that was just gibberish. Yeah, okay, so now this updates. So I can select this, delete the things, and this thing is always updated. And that's only step 1. Now step 2 is also updating it, the custom stuff here. Yeah. Okay. Oh man, I had already solved this problem here. The only difference is here is I'm also updating this components element thing. Which is, yeah, okay. All right, so that's the props. So all we need to do now is inspector element, right? Dot inspect, or we can do this, and then we can do inspector element dot query selector, and the inspector, which we now moved here, it really shouldn't be here. It could just be in as a class variable or whatever. Although, how do we access them? I don't know. So we probably just gonna do this, right? Query selector, input, data prop equals value. Does that get me the right thing? Nope. Your element is not defined. Okay. So that gets us all the way to there. I mean, I'm so tempted to just loop through the props and let God sort them out. But that will be very, very tricky because obviously right now the value property here, the cage value, for example, in this case, yeah. So we're gonna actually have to parse it. Dot parse cells RCV value. Here we go. And that's kind of where the custom logic has to come in, right? Let props equals cell. Props cage value RC val dot value equals val. So that's one direction, and hopefully we can streamline that for future property editors and stuff. So now this would update for the numbers, as you can see down here. The opposite doesn't happen yet, right? So that is now firing. Okay, so first of all, I can hide all this now. What's that firing? Handle inspector change. Oops. Handle inspector change. So I'm guessing that's happening. Handle inspector change. So that now we need the opposite. Instead of updating the inspector, we need to update the component. Which I could have thought of sooner. That seems like a very basic corollary component. And that kind of might sidestep the whole UI versus rendering and so on deal. The question is which component? The selected component, right. So this isn't actually going to do much. So maybe I should rename cage editor to cage inspector. Inspector. And editor component to inspector. So editor component I don't think is a component at all, is it? I don't remember now. But we'll do that as a separate thing when things are relatively stable, so I don't get myself more. And probably after I get rid of all the deprecated code, because that's going to start becoming a bit of a pain. All right, and then here we can do this like that. Right, so I go here and make this a 1. Yeah, so that means now handle component change, handle inspector change, handle inspector change. We're just going to call this dot update component and handle inspector change. Wait, before we do this, target dot dataset dot prop. Is that enough? I think so. So we can just do this. Right. So pick up this and this. Whoops. And then update component is actually going to get an updated thingamajig here. And then update component here will have update. All right. And that should pass. Yeah, man, I've done all of this so many times before. Why do I not like save that code in some sort of good reusable thing? Anyway, so now we get our little update package in here, and we can do something like update component, components selection. So cell dot props dot, and right now I'm just gonna do the lazy way out, switch up, update object dot keys update dot for each. So we're assuming there could be multiple props, right? Key, and then I'll do switch key, and we're currently manually handling each individual type. Case value, and then boom, break, boom, we obviously need to parse it. Let props. That's the end of the music. That's my marker to take a lunch break. So no, yes, wrong button. props dot cage value equals so cage value would be I think it'll be an R C and update key. Right. Let's output it, make sure what we're doing is sane. Okay, it uppercases it, which we probably don't want. And now we need to find a way of updating the value here. And by finding a way, I mean, look at our deprecated function to see how we've done it previously, because we've already done it, and I don't want to break my brain just doing it out again. So section update UI, section editable line, section lines, section editable cage, render cages, render cage. We're literally re-rendering the cage, which is probably unnecessary. Probably unnecessary. So we can probably look at cell, and we probably have props and elms. Right, and elms. And then there should be elms dot text. And elms dot text should have some sort of property we can change, right? Elms. Nope. Elms path val. Elms dot val. And val is an object of type text. And text, objects of type text have text content. And we should be able to do this. Yada, yada, yada. And now if I type here, object null is not iterable. Object null is not iterable. Cage value. Oh, missing colon. There's a colon there. I don't know why I need a colon there. And I could make the position of the value editable here, which is not something that was possible previously, but now in this editor it'll be fairly easy to do. Right? And we can just goes there, goes there, goes there. We go there, do the same thing here, we go back to there. Cool, and it's two-way as well. Sweet. You can just start typing. Wait a second, what happens if I just start typing? Okay, yeah. So that's the beginning of the inspector mechanism, but I'm also feeling that we should probably delve a little deeper into the whole mechanism, the whole class structure for the inspector, because I think it's quite powerful, and I think it's worthwhile doing well and saving ourselves some grief down the line. Update inspector. This should be up here. Handle inspector change. Log event. So this is super generic, actually. Update inspector. Update inspector. Update component. All right. And does it work if I load it after the fact? Nope. 393, 393. So if not your element, return. I wish I could do something like do these kind of checks in the parent rather than here at this level. Kind of have a wraparound and monkey patch it, all that. So I mean, that's aspect-oriented programming, and JavaScript can do it. but people would get very, very confused. Ooh. Wait. Oh yeah, because I'm not in the editor right now. Okay. It probably shouldn't select this then. Because right now I'm automatically selecting elements when you're going there, when I'm adding them. Which shouldn't, yeah, okay, but I'm not gonna worry about that right now. And right now I still don't have a way of not selecting stuff. Oh, and adding things aren't quite possible right now. But this also, oh, wait a second, does this update? It updates, okay, it doesn't update there and then, so that needs to update right away. I did a thing, update inspector, update component, get going, update inspector. This, okay, so update component. You probably, in this case, actually want to call it afterwards. We're going to do this, right? And after a component is updated, we want to update the inspector. Now this scares me a little. Is there a way for this to loop infinitely? I think there might be. But I don't know right now. If I type in here, okay, so that updates this and updates this. And does that and that. So it looks like we have two-way updates between the UI, these different kinds of UIs and different levels and all that stuff. All right, it's starting to look kind of smooth now, so that's actually pretty good. And it's doing less and less weird stuff. Which is nice. We need a way of deselecting all that stuff. It's coming together actually. Quite happy with this. And yes, it seems like I'm moving slowly, but now like once I have one to replicate that to other values, you know, it becomes much easier. And eventually maybe this inspector thing can be defined as part of the component. So the cage component just knows what its inspector should look like. And maybe even have these translation things here. So maybe update inspector shouldn't live in the cage editor. It might actually live in the component itself. Although, you know, this is the inspector. This will be the inspector. I'm going to rename these from editor to inspector. And I think that will get us going. Let's have a quick look at the other examples to make sure it doesn't break on these kind of things. So yes, it does break. Basically, if there's no value and so on and so forth. So 398. 398. So if selection, all right. If so cage value. So obviously we don't want to do things that aren't to be done. Oh my god, I caught the fly. I squeezed hard, rubbed my fingers together, opened my hand, and the fly flew out. By the way, these are not fruit flies. I looked it up. These are fungus gnats. And I knew they're coming from my houseplant. So and I found the plant actually. I put it outside now. Basically, sometimes I overwater the plant, and get back here. And some kind of fungus grows on the moist soil, and these flies love laying their eggs on it. Like they don't eat fruit, they don't sit on food, they don't do anything. They're just really, really annoying, and that's bad enough. They don't deserve to live. That's how we do. 398 if props.cage value. If props.cage value. I'm pretty sure that not props.cage value not. If props.cage value, okay. Right, so that works. Now if I do this, that doesn't work. It does not know how to add a value or remove or delete the value, right? So that's actually gonna go on a to-do list somewhere here. All right, that's done. Done. Yeah, I guess you could argue we're almost basically kind of doing it inside the puzzle. No, not really. Let's see. Update selection style. That's done. Remove cage highlight when changing section or deselecting cage. That's still not being done. Add / remove cage value cage value element SVG elements according to inspector. So basically, if I delete this, it should remove those, and if I add them in, it should put the text element back in. And then we have almost complete round trip for one component and one property, right? Yeehaw! But that's how everything begins. All right, I'm off to my lunch break. Thank you very much for joining. Thank you so much for the 100 subscribers. I hope I get the notification about updating my my thing soon, my channel name. Google tends to move quite slowly when it comes to this. Ah, this fly. I can't catch it. You know, patrons at 20. So this week I'm going to work on the new set. Seriously, get on my face. Get on my face. Ah, these gnats. Anyway, yeah, that's it. I'm gonna take a lunch break. Thank you very much. Thanks for the support. You know, it's a pyramid. You know, we need a lot of users. Some of those users will be buyers. Some of those buyers will be subscribers, and some of those subscribers will be patrons. That's how it goes. But if the base is big enough, maybe the top will be big enough eventually, and that's what I'm hoping for. Thank you very much, guys. Take care. Have a good day, and maybe I'll see you for another stream later tonight.